The information provided on Terminal Addiction Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified provider with any questions you might have regarding medical or mental health condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, the hosts, are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization or institution. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no guarantee regarding the completeness, reliability, or applicability of the content discussed. Listening to this podcast does not establish provider-patient relationship. If you're experiencing a medical emergency or mental health crisis, please contact emergency services or crisis line immediately.
Welcome back to another episode of the Terminal Addiction Podcast. My name is Doug H.
And I'm Paul B.
And we are live, recorded for you guys, but he and I are live, recording from the upper dog room here at Paul's place, but there are no dogs up here. So I'm really hoping that one of the dogs comes and hangs out up here at some point during the episode.
Well, we've not seen each other in a while. I mean, I know you guys hear us every 2 weeks, but we've not seen each other in quite a while.
Yeah, I've been on some days off, visited my folks. Paul had some procedure done, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Yeah,
but,
we'll talk about that.
No, when we get together and record, sometimes we do 2 or 3 episodes, or we've got a couple of guests that we've got to come on, and so yeah, this is the first time I've actually been up here in probably close to a month, I would say. So it's nice to see you, Paul.
Oh, well, nice to see you too. And since the time you saw me last, I started a new podcast that I'm gonna pitch a little bit. So my new podcast, I actually come out and you get to meet the real me, the nurse, Paul. And why? We've got background music from it.
I don't think I've been to these guys' concert. Who is this?
No, this is our house band.
Our house band. Sweet.
So the house band is called Subcutaneous Grunge or Sub-Q Grunge.
I like it. Yeah. I like it very much.
They might make a guest appearance here in the Upper Doghouse studio every once in a while, too.
I like it. It's got almost a little reggae feel to it as well.
Yeah, a little grunge-ish, reggae-ish.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for bringing the house band on, Paul. That's nice. So Paul and I have not done just an episode with he and I in a little while. So it's nice to just get back together and check in on how things are doing. But we've got a couple of things here we want to talk with you guys about. So Paul, where are we starting today?
Well, you brought up that I had surgery. Yeah, I had kind of a minor. It was a 4-hour surgery, but I had kind of a minor procedure. And one of the things that really impacted me was that I thought I was awake during the whole surgery. And one of the things they gave me during surgery was a benzodiazepine. And at points, even though I thought I was wide awake, my surgeon later told me, nope, we had to keep waking you up during your procedure.
Really?
Yeah, even though I remembered like the exact amount that they gave me of the drugs and everything, it was kind of bizarre. I'm waking up and I feel good, and I thought, wow, it didn't seem like 4 hours. Well, it's because I was asleep for half of that.
So this is, I think, the 3rd or 4th procedure you've had done on various parts of the body.
Well, I'm getting old.
They're just putting it back together. But no, how was this experience compared to, I know we did the elbow or shoulder, elbow.
My elbow.
Few months ago. How was this experience compared to that?
Well, so the experience itself was pretty good. My only part was that I didn't have a catheter afterwards, and that I didn't care much for that. But I had an overnight stay at the hospital, and everything went great. And the next day, I felt like normal. So, I took a couple days off, but really, I after the 24 hours after surgery, I was pretty good.
As Paul knows, and I'm sure many of our regular listeners know, I work at a treatment center, and we work with a lot of patients. And one of the things that comes up is safe use of medications, especially after treatment and early sobriety. And Paul and I are 6 years and change, sober each, but it still comes up. And I think it's important, and I think you have done a great job talking with your doctors, your anesthesia team, your surgeons, and just making sure that everybody is on the same page. And I think that's been one of the big things. We're no longer, using in private or hiding or lying or operating in the shadows. So when something does need to get done, like a necessary surgery, talking with your team about it, there are safe ways to manage pain and to manage the anesthesia process.
Yeah, matter of fact, the two medications that I got were Versed and fentanyl. And everyone thinks, street fentanyl. No, when you get in a hospital setting, it's a little different. I didn't get that street buzz feeling off of it. I was very comfortable during my procedure, even though it was long. I did. It was a concern going in, but coming out, I realized that it really wasn't a big deal. I was very open with my surgery team and my anesthesia team about that both times this year. And, just working with them, when I had my first procedure, I was very honest with them that I did not want to have ketamine because I had a bad ketamine experience in a previous surgery. So, once we got that taken care of, we were in good shape and there weren't any issues at all.
Nice. Yeah. One of the things that I was talking with some patients that I run an aftercare group with, we were talking about new experiences in sobriety, new experiences in recovery. And so we were talking about things like going back to school, getting a new job, taking vacations. But I think this is also a new experience that people need to be aware of, to pay attention to. So what I watched you go through with this one and your previous, operations, it's like, okay, whenever anything like that happens to me, I got a canary in the coal mine over here to kind of show me how to do things and the right way to do it, and to know that it works, coming out on the backside.
Yeah. And we all talk about the toolbox, and having those people that I talk to, having those other tools that I have in my toolbox was certainly an important part of going into this safely and coming out of it safely. Never really had any cravings for anything, including alcohol, during or after. And, just knowing how to handle it, had I dealt with this a little differently, 6 years ago, maybe I did have a procedure right as I was leaving treatment, but, that was actually when I had my bad ketamine experiences, just as I was leaving, treatment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that very much. And you were, and again, because it was a new experience super early on in the process, there were more nerves and more apprehension towards the procedure. And then when you had your elbow done, I think you kind of knew you were more stable. And then this time you were like, I already talked to everybody. We're on the same page. We're ready to go. And so I think that we do talk about that, sobriety recovery toolbox, and somewhere, and these are all metaphors, by the way, people. At some point, somewhere at home, I have like a big toolbox that stands on the wall. It's got like 12 drawers and everything's super well organized. But then if I got to hit the road and go somewhere and go do things, I've got like a little toolbox, just a handheld one that I take the essentials with. And I can almost guarantee you, I can't see Paul's pockets, but I can almost promise you he has a Leatherman somewhere.
Yeah.
So like a Swiss Army knife. And I have those tools that I have at my disposal right there at hand when I need them. And so that's, sponsor and meetings and sober supports and the literature, some of the things that we've been taught. So I've got tools at home that, like, if there's something big, I can go find the specialty tool for. But there are some tools that I just carry at all times, in that little, metaphorical Leatherman that I have.
Yeah. And I think that leads us into one of the other things we talked about before we started recording, which was self-advocacy. I had to go into, these surgeries saying, look, I am fine with anesthesia, but don't give me any ketamine because, I had a bad experience.
Yeah.
But, we have to go through self-advocacy and boundaries throughout life. And let's have you share some of yours.
Sure. So one of the things that I was talking to some patients about, last week during a group was setting boundaries. And advocating for yourself. If you're not comfortable with something, or if I'm not comfortable with something, I don't like to go do it. I don't like to put myself in unnecessary risky positions, or positions where I know I'm going to come out of it with a resentment, because I know that's just fuel for me to stew on and worry about and stress over. And Paul and I are AA guys, and so resentments are the number one offender. They get more people drunk than anything, and I don't want to have those. So one of the things that I've really tried to do is advocate for myself, set boundaries with myself. I set boundaries with my disease, and I set boundaries with other people. And if somebody, is going from their hula hoop into my hula hoop, I've got to set boundaries, and I have to speak up and let somebody know that I'm not comfortable with something, or I don't like the way that something's being handled, so that I don't just go along and people please and find myself in a situation where I'm all pissed off and I can't sleep and I'm not going to meetings and I'm stressed out, because that's not where I want to be in my recovery. That's not what my sobriety is supposed to look like. Yeah,
certainly. I've been invited to family events and events with friends where I just had to set that rule. Look, I'm not going to go someplace where everyone's getting drunk. It's not my thing anymore. I realize that I do have a few years under my belt, but still I'm not comfortable in that situation. But even at work, I had to set a boundary with work, telling them, look, I'm not going to go overnight to do a work assignment, because I've had bad experiences with that in the past. So, work was accommodating. It took a little while. They would still send me out of town, which was fine, but I'm going to return that evening, just so you know ahead of time.
Yeah, and I'm and I thank and blame both my mom and dad for instilling a good work ethic in me. But I'm generally, I look at myself as an above and beyond is the normal for me. And I had some issues recently where I was going above and beyond and felt like I either wasn't getting appreciated for it, and that's my stuff, or people felt like I was overstepping, my boundaries and doing things that I didn't need to be doing. So I had to be able to internalize all that and talk to people, and whether it was Paul or a sponsor or some close sober supports or family or friends, I had to figure out what's my part in it, and go through like the serenity prayer and find the acceptance or the courage or the wisdom. And I was talking to a gentleman with, long-term sobriety, and he said he doesn't get the wisdom from himself. He gets the wisdom from other people. And so I really had to bring a lot of other people in on this, the situations really recently, and find that there's, their part, and then there's my part, and then there is some overlap in there. But the best thing that I could do is take a step back and work with the patients and take care of myself and go to my meetings and make sure that I'm getting, enough, sleep, rest, exercise, healthy diet, and all that kind of stuff, so that I don't start spiraling and not realize it. So with me, it's, I spent a lot of time fucking around when I was drinking and using, and I felt like I really set myself back, years or a decade or so or more, in different areas of my life. So there's a lot of things that I'm trying to make up for. And I'm not trying to make those things up to other people necessarily. I'm trying to make those things up to myself and this new version of myself that I'm creating. I want it to be, different than the one that was drinking and using. And so this new version is above and beyond is the norm that I expect from myself. But sometimes I realize that I expect myself from other people. And when I do that, I find myself getting let down. My feelings get hurt. I get disappointed. I get frustrated because other people are not me and I'm not other people. And so I've got to have some sort of, realistic, rational expectations of what other people are going to do. And if they're not doing those things, then I need to be able to stand up and have conversations and speak about them and voice my concerns, but also, find where my lane is and stay as close to it as I can.
It's interesting. I was at a meeting yesterday, and for those of you familiar with AA, fourth step, and the topic came up, what's my role in this? And, in a lot of life circumstances, we have to kind of step back and take a look at what was my role and what happened. And that can be challenging sometimes because, our first instinct was, well, it was somebody else's fault. It was somebody else's fault. And until we realize that, well, yeah, 90% of it might have been somebody else's fault, but 10% of it was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting to that point can be really hard, especially early on.
Yeah, I noticed that was something that I've done. There have been a few things that have popped up over the last couple months, and it all kind of seemed to come at the same time, or one thing would trigger another thing. And so I really did have to go back and work steps on a lot of this stuff. And I'm powerless over whatever the situation is, the person, the place, the thing, the institution. I'm powerless over that. And because I'm trying to exert my self-will and control over the situation, my life is frustrating, unmanageable in sorts. Then I had to seek out, other higher powers and trust that, whatever God or the universe or the spirit is, that it's out there and it's taking care of what I can. But also that there are people in my life who are more tangible, higher powers who can help me work through this stuff. And getting with a sponsor and another real close sober support and a number of other people, working 4-step on this stuff and getting to the point where I'm realizing that, some of this is them, some of this is me, but my stuff all traced back to fear, which for me working, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those steps in the AA and NA programs, I really found that everything in my life goes back to fear. And it's either fear of losing something I have. That might be a person. That might be an idea of something. That might be, the way that I thought something was. So fear of losing something I have. There's the fear of not getting something I want, or the fear of not getting something I feel like I have earned or deserved or have worked for. And then there's the third kind of fear that I have to look at, and it's the fear of being found out about. And some of that is fear of people finding out that I'm not, as good as I think I am, or as good as I'm trying to show. Or sometimes that fear of being found out about actually is I'm worried about other people getting found out about. And so a lot of my people pleasing, and a lot of my above and beyond stuff that I look at as just me working hard is actually me trying to cover for other people. And I just can't be doing that anymore, because that's more premeditated resentment. So working, a thorough 4th, 5th with other people, and then finding all that stuff in 6 and 7, the character defects and the shortcomings, all that fear is covering up things like abandonment and feeling like I've been disappointed, and feeling like I've been let down, or feeling like I've been taken advantage of, or that I've been lied to. And those are fears that go back to, when I was drinking and using, and well before that, even when I was a little guy coming up, I still had those fears. So all that stuff that I was, really worrying about and overly focusing on, actually is stuff that I can control. And I, took some of this stuff to therapy, and took some of it to a sponsor, and took some of it to family and friends and sober supports, and found out where my part is, and where my stuff ends and where theirs starts. And I'm trying to get my hula hoop down to like a normal size, because my hula hoop can probably fit its planetary size. So I absorb, and I think that everything in the world is my fault, and not Atlas with the world on his shoulders. And that's not true. It's just me in a normal sized hula hoop. And I gotta be able to figure out where I end and where other people begin. But that's hard for me, because I want people to like me. I want people to be proud of me. I want to do a good job. I want to go above and beyond, but it's not always my job to do that. I
like that you're talking about hula hoops. So I one of my things in life that I really enjoy are Venn diagrams. Mm-hmm. So we have this hula hoop or this Venn diagram where, everything we can control is in one little circle, and all the stuff that I can't control is in another little circle. And some of that might overlap a little bit, but mostly they're two separate circles. Mm-hmm. The stuff that gets me drunk, the stuff that gets me, using again, is the stuff that I can't control. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stuff I can control, hey, no big deal. I don't worry about those things all the time. But the stuff that I don't have that much control over is the stuff that, keeps me up at night. It's the stuff that eventually, leads me back to drinking and using.
Yeah. And for me, and I know Paul and I run in some similar circles, we've got guys in our circle that got, 12, 20, 30, 40. God, Barry's got 49 years coming up, or just had. So we have some good guys with some quality long-term sobriety. And so, that's where I find the wisdom. That's where I get the other side of the story. That's where I'm able to zoom out a little bit and see that whatever situation I'm dealing with, there's my part, but then there's other stuff, and there's stuff that I'm worrying about that I don't need to be worrying about, because it's just gonna upset me. It's just gonna irritate me. It's just gonna frustrate me. And that's not where I need to be if I'm trying to work a recovery program and also trying to help other people. And so for me, it's been important to get outside myself, go help other people, whether it's in the rooms or outside of the rooms. Spent a couple of weekends down with my family. That was really nice. I'm still in school, so I have that to focus on. I've got this podcast that Paul and I are doing here. So I've got these other areas of my life where I can take that energy and reapply it somewhere more productive.
A couple of weeks ago, my car that I just bought maybe a month ago, it broke down, and it broke down in the driveway of a friend of ours who's been sober for about 30 years. And I tried calling him. He wasn't home. And I sat there, I called tow truck, and I realized there's not much I can do. The car is broke down. It's sitting here in this parking lot. And in comes this truck, and I hear, "Hey, Paul, hey, Paul." And I look over, and it's my friend who I tried calling earlier. I'm sitting in his driveway. And, he asked me, "What can I do?" And I said, "No, you know what? I got this, because really all I need is a tow truck getting me back to the dealership." It ended up being a problem that, I bought a car with 180,000 miles on it, and in 150,000 miles, these things usually break. So, it was uncomfortable, but I knew that there were only certain things that I can control. That serpentine belt breaking at 180,000 miles wasn't one of the things I could control.
Nope.
So, I didn't get drunk over it. 6 years ago, that would have been probably a different story. I would have been probably sitting in that parking lot with that bottle of vodka that I knew was in my trunk. So, how we handle things just has to change, and we have to learn to adapt to dealing with things. I deal with PTSD every day. How I deal with it depends on me. I can choose the old way, or I can choose the new way. And my new way is to get in that toolbox and fix things.
Yeah, and I'm getting to a point where I'm more accepting of things happening around me, things that are outside of my control. But I still get wrapped up when I see things that maybe don't directly affect me, but I know that I could help fix the problem or offer some insight on a solution when I know that those things are affecting other people. Which is one reason I'm not big on watching TV and not big on watching the news, because I just get pulled into all sorts of weird corners where I don't need to be, and I don't need to be worrying about things that are, that far outside of my scope. But I do know what you're talking about there, Paul. I had some work done on my car a month or two ago. And it just so happened to coincide with time that a friend of mine was on vacation and out of town. So I was able to use their vehicle and took my car in and got everything taken care of. And because I'm not, scraping by like I used to, the financial piece was not overwhelming or overbearing. And, I just took it in and did the adult thing to do and got it taken care of. And so I have those experiences where things come a little bit more naturally, but sometimes I still find that, I get wrapped up and worried about things that maybe aren't mine to worry about.
See, I watch dystopian sci-fi on TV, and I listen to true crime podcasts. That helps me relax, because the world is shit out there, but my world's okay.
Yeah. And I do have to remember that I have worked hard. We have worked hard to simplify our lives. To focus on the things that actually matter: friends, family, careers, education, sleep, diet, exercise. All those kinds of things are in my control, and I can make myself available to those things and make sure that I am working to be the best version of myself that I can be. But then there's this other stuff, and it's so easy to get dragged down into it, and it's really hard for me to find my way out once I'm in. So for me, it's just a lot easier to avoid some of those things. We were talking about, this, we're recording this on the 4th of July weekend. I didn't go out and do anything. There are crowds that I don't mind being around: the hockey crowd, the baseball crowd, concerts. But going over to Columbus to see the red, white, and boom and see 200,000 people, that was just a crowd I don't want to deal with. And even some of the more small local places, I just those kinds of crowds are not for me. And so I don't put myself in those situations because I know what they're going to do and I know how I'm going to feel coming out of them. So I just don't do them anymore, which is kind of I think that there's some insight there. So
yeah, no, I mean, I sat out on a boat and watched the fireworks, but the people that I was with all had the understanding that we were not going to be drinking, and there wasn't any alcohol on board. And of course, Ohio Department of Natural Resources was making sure that nobody had alcohol on board. But, it was a good time. And we were off the lake a couple hours after the fireworks and really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
So I'm glad we were able to talk about some of this stuff on this episode. But for me, it really is just coming back to what's in my hula hoop and what's not, and making sure that I know how to set boundaries and advocate for myself and speak up for myself when I'm feeling overwhelmed or like I'm a fish out of water. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. I think Paul and I, what was the number we just hit? 1,000 1,000
downloads and 25 episodes.
I think that's great. So we really want to thank everybody out there who has listened to us, once or twice, and extra thanks to those who put us on their instant downloads every week. We just can't thank you guys enough, and the feedback that we're getting is great. So if there's anything that you guys want to hear us talk about or ramble about, please feel free to just get a hold of Paul or I, and we'll talk about whatever you guys want to hear about. So is that house band still around anywhere, Paul?
Yeah, the house band's still playing, so I'm going to put them on. We will see you in a couple weeks, so enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization. This content is for informational purposes only and is not intended for professional advice. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Until next time.